Okay, let's wrap up this lesson on the Photoshop workspaces and interface by doing a few things to this file and saving it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here to the crop tool. It looks like, I guess, a rectangle with little tails. Once you click on the crop tool, you get these little handles here on the edge and should actually snap right to the document that we had or the images that we had. So I'm going to just kind of snap it to it. You'll see that the little lines here, this is your rule of thirds. So if you're designing something other than this little practice file, these are really important. You want to put your subjects on these PowerPoints here, here, and here. Okay, so once you've got your crop selected, there's a number of different ways to finish it, but the one I wanted to point out is this little checkbox up here and the circle with the slash. Many things that you're doing in Photoshop will want you to confirm that you have, you're happy with what you've done. And oftentimes you can't do anything until you do that. So make sure that if you see a check mark up on the options bar, make sure you hit it. Okay, so that finishes our crop. And let's go to a different tool like the move tool. Once you've got the crop done, I like to get off of the crop tool. And then let's just save it. So the first time you save something, you may need to do a save or a save as, either one. They're the same the very first time. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And let's navigate. Again, we're going to go to the data drive or storage drive, into your name. Where's my name? There's Dockery. And we have this Photoshop and then the Photoshop files. And Photoshop files are always .psd. That's the file extension for a Photoshop file. And that'll let us have all the layers and we can continue to edit it. So always save the original Photoshop file. So go ahead and hit save once you've navigated there. Next, we want to save a file that we can turn in. So if you go to File Save As, in Photoshop, you have all these different options. Illustrator, there's a bunch of different options. You can also go to File and Export. So a lot of programs, specifically the Adobe programs, have export options. So if we go to Export As, we'll get this handy dialog box. It's going to give us a preview of what our export is going to look like. It's got a lot of different information about like the size, like if I wanted a transparent PNG or a JPEG, I could change the quality of this JPEG. So by doing an export, we get a lot more options than simply doing a save as. So I'm going to choose Export As, change it to JPEG, and when we hit Export All, this gives us another option to where do we want to save it. So since this is going to be something that we turn in and we're exporting it, let's go back here to our Dockery folder, and we can use these breadcrumbs along the top here to navigate directly back to the root of our folder and then into our exports folder. Now, I'm going to ask you to name these with a specific naming convention. That'll make it easier for me to grade. So what I'd like you to call this one is 000, so 3 zeros, a dash, and then workspace. And that will make it easier for me to grade later. And then go ahead and hit save. And now if we go into that folder, we should have a JPEG here in our exports folder. And if we go into the Photoshop folder and into the Photoshop originals or Photoshop files, depending on what you called it, there is the PSD. And later, if we want to work on it again, all we have to do is double click on that file. So that's how you save an original Photoshop file and a JPEG.